All going. Violent paragraph. Did I say violent or violent? Purple paragraph, number 1. To a real revolutionist, there is no such thing as some success. There is no if you begin to see what I was going to try to point at tonight, then I could also add that to someone with that sort of intelligence, some success falls somewhere within the realm of being meaningless, pitiful, or ludicrous. That about covers it. Now see, if you were a real revolutionist and you had no interest, no tolerance, to use technical chemical terms, no truck with some success, then realize this: you would have no need to count, make charts, or keep score, because all of that's involved. All such activities relate only to some success. That's the only reason people count chickens. That's the only reason people make charts. That's the only reason people keep score of their life. Now there's a connection between some success and the validation I was speaking of there being this kind of internal reporting and people to look at it on the surface, the level of observable human intercourse of people apparently giving one another, and then each person having to have, seeking out validation for their life, and then validation for their little projects, even validation momentarily. Just validation that you just say one thing, and you immediately want somebody to validate, well, that's all right, so that the report can go back into the home office that even on a very low level, things still seem to be relatively okay. There's a connection between validation and some success. See if you can see it right quick. The validation in a form encourages people to press on along the lines of some success. Well, good. Maybe we should meet more often on Veterans Day. Although I had no idea that hardly any of you were veterans, but to this kind of new intelligence, to a real revolutionist, the whole thing of validation, and its ties to some success, would, as they would say in the city, and hell, I can repeat them, it would almost be funny if it weren't almost close to being, forget sad, pitiful, sickening, at least to the revolutionist. Because he or she would have absolutely no use for the kind of validation tied to some success, such as, well, yes, I've lost some weight, or yes, it's true, I do drink some less than I did previously. I'm trying to CF you back, send you back to several meetings ago, and along the line of this week, of me pointing out, or trying to get you to see, in a sense, the ludicrousness of someone needing a scale to know if they were losing weight. For someone to keep charts, keep score of anything they're doing, whether they're doing the privacy of their home weighing, or then weighing themselves in the bathroom, and then going out to their housemate and saying, guess what, I've lost another 2 ounces. Another person go, wow, how great. That is not success. Now in the city, that's a wee bit of all right though. In the city, that's just fine. In the city, fact, let me play the city's part right quick, since I'm so good at it. I can play the city's part, ordinary intelligence, and say, well, listen, I've been around you talking now for a long time, and I know exactly, I'll bet you I know exactly the kind of area that you're going to try to go to, and I'm going to tell you what. You're getting too far afield, it's getting too theoretical, because I'm going to tell you what, if I tried to follow what you were talking about, see, I'm city talking about me now. If I tried to follow that, I know what you're about to get at, I'll bet. You're going to say it's like all or nothing. What would be the fun in life, part of the fun of losing weight, is telling people. It's telling people. Or having somebody just to come up. Here's the real, is have an unsolicited comment of somebody come up and say, pardon me, they pull up in their car while you're at the bus stop and they say, I've been driving by here for the last 2 years and I've noticed you, I'd want to come by, we'd make jokes about wish we had a harpoon to pull you in. And I just had to stop and say, don't you look svelte? Hadn't you lost weight? And you go, well, yes, I have. The city would say to somebody like me, you are, to say the least, a spoil sport because, hell, that's part of the fun. And to the city, I'd say, well, I guess you finally got me. That's all, let's go. In the city, that's all right. And you do know, even when I use examples about losing weight or cutting down on your drinking or stop drinking or whatever, all of these apparent behavioral habits, I hate to say it because many of you have behavioral habits that need to be unhabitated, and of course you need to do it, so I'm not trying to discourage it. But as far as on this kind of a 5D Richter scale as to the importance of those kind of habits, of worrying about, I've lost some weight, I've had some success in cutting down my smoking, I want to stop smoking, and I have had some success. You're talking about, remember, the kind of thing that the organization, the apparent systematic involvement even in an individual, is not intended to succeed. It is not intended to do the purpose that is either stated or is tacitly understood. And all the variations I point out of this. And the city would be correct if they could talk this way, if they could see this way, that as far as protecting or defending or validating the rest of humanity, we could say that, yes, I fully understand. I'll admit it. I understand that part of the fun in the city of people losing weight is to talk about it. That part of the fun, something that might seem to be more serious to some people, that part of the fun of ceasing to drink like a fish would be that, boy, I feel better and my liver's gone down to the point that I can actually put on a shirt now. And people say, well, you look better since you've gone back to a human color and you don't look yellow anymore. I can admit, all right, that's part of the fun. But now you got to admit, that shows how hard up you and everybody else is for fun back at the city level. So I am, I was at least inferring as we row in one direction and you try to look in another, that we're talking about more, I'm inferring more, when you say that some success is not tolerable, it's not even interesting, it's not meaningful. If you actually wanted to do something, let us say you did want to quit drinking, that I hadn't stopped people from drinking and you were drinking, and you just thought, well, I got to stop drinking. It's just not good. It's not doing me. It's not any benefit. What is some success? What has that got to do with succeeding? Now, I'm not talking to the city anymore because they won. They talked me out of it and they caught me. Now I'm talking to you. Not only that, not only what might appear to be behavioral habits of smoking or drinking or not getting enough exercise, but then into this. And then it's one step from there for me to say then into this whole activity. What is some success? Well, I'm doing a lot better than I was when I started. It's really meant a lot since I've met you because you have changed some of my thinking. I've had some success after listening to you and doing some of this stuff. I've had some success in not feeling so depressed. To a real revolutionist, there's no such thing as some success. And yet, especially with, speaking relatively, some of the newer people, if some of you wrote me a note or you came up and told me when we were celebrating St. Rabbit's Day or something and you had a few drinks and you said, I just wanted to tell you that I've just I've had some real success, not imaginary, I've had some real success in getting over my bouts of depression since I've met you. Let me give you a big old hug here on St. Rabbit's Day. That's all right. If I'm the one that said you can have a few drinks, don't overdo it and cry on me. But I understand that feels nice. But you could have had some success without this. Now, from some views, I'm not going into it, but from some views, we could conclude that, well, yeah, I could have stayed there and laughed. I used to think I was having some success, and I didn't. I used to try to lose weight, and I'd lose it, and then I wouldn't notice it, and 2 months later I put it all back on. Or I would think that I was getting over my fits of depression, and I wasn't. And so you can say that I could imagine I got better, but I didn't say that. Because you just imagine that people imagine things. You just imagine that imaginary stuff isn't real. And we just can't go into that again tonight. Other than me to say that you're wrong. You could have had some success without this. Even if it was just talking. That's some success. Even if it was just you joining Lord Asses Anonymous. Or Drinkers Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, no, that wouldn't work. They actually stopped drinking. Another group, I'll make up one, Drinkers Anonymous. That it's not people that actually stopped drinking like the AA. You're people that still drink, you feel guilty about it, and you get together and you talk about it. Right? That's not just funny. I'm not being sarcastic. If there's not such a group, there should be. In fact, there are such groups, they just don't have names. There's people sitting around bars talking and saying, I ought to cut down on this. And somebody say, I know it, I've been saying that for a good while now. How long? 42 years. I got to cut down. But they could have actual meetings. Have little cards or buttons, and people go there that's had their behavior vis-a-vis drinking has not changed at all since they joined Drinkers Anonymous. But they sit around and talk about how they can't cut down. You do understand that to them, if you caught them after a meeting and said, I understand that you are not AA people, you're Drinkers Anonymous, they said, yeah, and I understand that you people haven't really quit drinking. That's right. If you quit drinking, we throw you out. You have to go to AA. And then if you were smart like you could say, well, what in the hell, what's the benefit in this? You say, well, I feel like I'm having some success. And then if you were still a hard-boiled cityite, you could say, well, you people are crazy. You're dumb, because all you're saying is you people still drink, you feel guilty about it, you can't stop, but you tell me that it's worthwhile and you're having some success by just sitting around talking about how you can't cut down or quit. And the person will go, yeah. And if you didn't suddenly go, damn, you're right, then you're not a cityite. I don't know where you're from. You probably need a drink. That is some success, but that is meaningless. It is. There are other ways to have a hobby. Now, off and on, I take shots and try to pull your attention. I have, during several eras of my speech to you people, jump back to health and point out that health is not a fit hobby for a revolutionist. Because having health as a hobby is to have some success. Because you're going around constantly going, how's my blood pressure? How do I look? And carrying around machines to take your blood pressure. You can apparently have some success other than this. It's always some success because you're going to die, motherfucker. And between here and there, it's only ordinary people that want to play this. It is not a fit hobby, not just because health is one of the worst ones to a revolutionist. But it's not just because it's health. It's because to a revolutionist, to new intelligence, if you could see it, is it, again, as a kind of hobby that can only be some success because you cannot accomplish perfect health. Everybody knows that. Well, if you hold them down for a second, they'll go, yeah. But if you have any success, it's some success, right? But now that I started that, what's the exceptions to all of this in the city? At the city level, what can you absolutely, totally, fully, comprehensively succeed at? What pursuit, what hobby, what interest, what attempted change can you succeed at? Rather than not ending your sentences with prepositions. At. A revolutionist could have no tolerance for, see if we can pull in another era from the last few weeks, could have no tolerance for gaps, lags, and missing pieces. For, can you not see, the gaps, lags, and missing peoples equal SS. They're synonymous. Some success is a gap. Some success is a lag. Some success, perforce, if you see it, dictates, implies, points to, tacitly acknowledges a missing piece. Because were that not so, we wouldn't be talking about some success. We're talking about S. Not SS, S. It'd be success, period, not some. But as long as you're dealing with some success, you are dealing also with lags. Not just in behavior, but remember, like the difference that I was trying to sketch out for you and what ordinary people in the city think of as being ignorance is simply a lag. What seems to be ignorance to humanity, once the lag is taken up, what was yesterday ignorance is now an accepted fact. It is a kind of leapfrogging going on. It is a kind of moving from level to level. It is a kind of completion. The one example I gave of when I drew out that little diagram, that on some level, if something reaches the point that makes perfect sense, then it can move to a different level, wherein it starts another process. Whereas the same thing, whatever it is, the same idea, the same knowledge, the same thing that is in you that you would call an understanding, that I now understand this one thing fully, it can then go to another level, wherein that is the beginning of another level, but now it makes no sense. I didn't say this the other night. I kept refraining by, well, now this is not absolutely true any more than it goes from one level to another, moving up as I had to draw it, or moving down or sideways. But it is that once something makes perfect sense on one level, it can move to another level wherein in the beginning it makes no sense, but it is a kind of self-fueling process, and it gives rise within the human genes. It gets reflected in ideas of reincarnation, life after death, precognition. Of course, I never hear anybody sing the praises of postcognition, which in the city would be a masterstroke for people to actually look after the fact and say, well, now I understand it, but now. The moving from a level always entails, you understand, what I was trying to tie together for you. Not me tie it together, trying to hint and make you get somewhere close to see that they might be tied together. I don't know. It's all gaps, all lags, all missing pieces. Creates this continual moving from place to place. As long as nothing is conclusive, or as long as if it appears to be conclusive, it then leads you somewhere else, even in the city. All right, now I'm full. Let's see, what'll I do? Right. Now I'll smoke. Now I'm full, what'll I do? I'll drink. Now I'm tired of exercising, what'll I do? I'll not exercise. Now I'm tired of laying here doing nothing, what'll I do? I'll get up and do something. Everything implies something else. If everything is only some success, then you'll stay moving. Everything will always shift to some other level, and what seemed to have been conclusion, which is only some success. So I'm trying to expand for you tonight what appears to be that this one line, I understand one thing, this makes perfectly good sense. So it seems to be a conclusion, but it's not. If it was, of course, everybody would be dead. It'd all stop. But it goes to another level, and so you're left over with the overall sensation, genetically, not intellectually, It comes out being described in various ways, but there is the genetic sensation that everything, no matter what's the best you do, everything is simply SS. It's some success. Again, I'll have to admit that based upon my own verbal sketches and maps, that it could be, if somebody could hear me and somebody was fit to make such an accusation, I'll do it, all right. Somebody could make the accusation, well, wait a minute, then what you're saying is that this so-called real revolutionist is attempting the impossible because you're going against the absolute genetic demands and makeup of life, right? You know, who asked you? I could be more insulting to the questionnaire, but I happen to know him and he's not all that bad, so. Now, well, you could ask such a question if you wanted to. Don't ask me. You got to be attempting the impossible, right? Now I refer you back for a third time to the example of the psychologist saying that although shyness may be genetic, that the parents themselves have a responsibility to keep down the family pressures that can, without any doubt, environmentally exacerbate this genetic shyness. So you have got within the confines of just one family, just one group of people, man, woman, child. You've got life through psychiatry saying to these three bundles of molecules that, all right, some of you here are absolutely doomed, destined, driven absolutely by your genes. The poor little child. But some of you here in this same little unit, some of you are not so doomed. And those of you who are not absolutely locked in to genetic demands, then you people have got to cut a little slack. You got to go an extra mile, do something, make more effort for the poor little one who is not so relatively, or has no freedom at all from the genetic demands. If you could hear just what they were saying in that, just ordinary people, life is having ordinary people make such statements. If you could hear that, then I would not have to play the part, or you wouldn't be on the side of the guy that I did. You know, the other guy that said, wait a minute, then what you're saying is attempting to do this is literally attempting to do the impossible, because you're saying to do that which goes against the genetic makeup of man. And whoever it is, whoever this real revolutionist is throughout history or right now, is not free from that. You're in the same, you came from the same gene pool, and so what you're saying is that life is as it is. And now you're saying, all right, these few people have got to do otherwise. And you know, you can't. I refer you back to the example. It is beautiful if you can see it. I couldn't improve upon it even though I made it up. No, I read it. No, I read it. That life apparently is saying that some of you can't help it. Just here in this one unit, the kid can't help it. The rest of you got to help it. But see, that's the end of the sentence. The mind can't deal with it. Well, wait a minute. All right. If this is true with the kid, then the parents at one time, I hate to point this out, Mr. Psychiatry Institution, but one time the parents were kids. Yeah, I don't like the smell of this, but yeah. Well, all right. And so at one time, we've got to go back a generation. Then one time, let's say this mama and the papa were both little shy nippers themselves. Yeah. Then where, and they couldn't help it, right? Well, maybe. Well, where along the way of them being little shy nippers based on their genetic lockstep with life, or that inclination, where along the line, I know it's a long way from being a little shy nipper to being a grown person and being a father or mother yourself. I know it's a long way, but exactly where along the line did they get the ability to do something outside what their genes make them do? And the institution of psychiatry or any other institution that was dumb enough to listen to me would go, I knew I wasn't going to like where this was going, and they would leave in a huff, if not a taxi. Because ordinary intellect, there's nowhere to go with that. But now you people know that, don't you? At least when I point it out, and on a good holiday like this. And of course, we got all the reservations, don't everybody forget, waiting over at the AMVETS. Within the genetic, within the ordinary framework and movement of life, there is nothing available but some success. And of course, I am not on a crusade. Nobody that understands anything would be on any sort of crusade out in life hollering, all of you people are wasting your time. That what you call success is some success. Even if you catch a few here and there that had a few drinks and depressed, they'd go, yeah. They'd say, if you're a sister of the church, I want to join up. But the bell curve of life cannot hear that. There's no way to hear it. Even if you hear the words, there is no use that ordinary intellect can make of that everything is some success. Now I guess the question should be, can you make any use of me pointing out what apparently, verbally, other than my side forays of me trying to strangle your brains into looking another way, for you to make any sense of the fact of me pointing out that the only success available, just by general terminology, a general sight, if you can see, all success going on in life is some success, and then for me to say, all right, to do this, some success ain't going to get it. It's just meaningless. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's pitiful. The question is, can you find any use for that? Does anybody even think that I've hinted at any use or even any methods? No, surely not. Isn't it wonderful that we finally came up with the easel? Can do things. I can turn the attention off me and look there. Now I hadn't even done anything. I can look there and they'll move the camera over there. You people will look there and I'm just looking. Because I know I'm threatening maybe to go do something. I was thinking about numbers. I don't do that enough. All right. A real revolutionist. Anybody with my kind of new intelligence, or this kind of new intelligence, it's not mine. I say mine because I made up the term. I sat for weeks having to think, or months. New intelligence. Trademark, patent pending, watch it. A real revolutionist, me saying, would have no tolerance for the gaps, the lags, the missing pieces that equals SS, some success. A little more specifically, this intolerance in specific areas that I have been talking about of late. Here we go. You think I can't do this? Would be a kind of intolerance, no use, I've never seen a one get that kind of laugh before. All right, that one. When you're on a roll, it's hard to stop. One. That one, a revolutionist would have no use for, no tolerance for, but no, let's say no use for, no need for the validation of others, the support of others. Not because it's wrong, and not because a revolutionist would be trying to be some pseudo hard ass, but it would be a fact, not something struggled for, not a sham, not an act, not a pretense, but if you were doing it correct, if you had the right understanding of what some success is and what it's not, and how it's tied to the whole body of life being alive, and within inside the body of life, the apparent opposites, contradictions, and paradoxes are not only useful, acceptable, merged, but are necessary. Growth food, minerals and vitamins, then if you understood that, this would be a fact, and we wouldn't have to talk about it. But the fact would be that you would have no need for, no use for, the validation of others, the support of others, the approval of others. Conversely, anything that you did, anything that you said you thought, anything that you said you felt, if you had to tell somebody, once you realized that you had to get the information out for somebody else to go, For life to give you some validation for this, but apparently other people, then conversely you would know, I ain't in the revolution. Not right now, I'm not. You would know that. You would feel pitiful. You would feel ludicrous. You would feel meaningless. Because there is the proof that whatever it is you're saying that you think or that you feel, it's not true. Oh, I'll give you this. You might say, I somewhat feel. I sometimes think. But what you're asking for is an acknowledgement that it's all right to just be some intelligent, which is what everybody's doing. It's all right to ask if other people will support you in your admission that you don't know what the hell is going on in life. And of course they say, neither do I. That nobody uses these words, but by validating you, they go, yeah. You cannot be a revolutionist and do that. I'll repeat one more time, not because of some secretive purpose, some impassionate goal that I have in mind for all you people. You got to find out for yourself, because you can still be passionate and etc. But if you've got any need in any particular time, forget all across the board or in general, because you've still got it in general. Don't even worry about some success, about how far you'll get with this before you die, because you'll be looking at some success. But at least specifically, you've got to be able to feel it yourself if you belong in this. If you've got to seek validation, again, I'm convertly-ing from the way I started, number one. But if you have got to have validation, there's many ways. But the obvious one is you just tell somebody, hey, look at what I wrote, this maxim I wrote. I was just thinking about so-and-so. And you tell somebody, your closest friend, your buddy, your chum, your pal, your heartmate, your mother, your husband, your wife. I'll leave out dogs for the time being. You can tell your dog, I guess. Not really, because if any of you actually do that, you're wanting validation from the sound of an echo. You want to hear your own voice. Or you're believing that the gods or people who have left Atlantis and are hovering around your bed somewhere are going to validate it. Anytime you have got to put what seems to be a piece of you into the electromagnetic spectrum, put it into sound, put it into writing, do something, and somebody else, some other human, apparently has to validate it, you're not doing anything. Not in regards to this. Because anything you're really doing, you do not need. Forget it. It's not you don't want, it's not that you got anything against people. They're going to do it in life. If you're going to hang around other people, if you're going home, if your family, your genetic line is anything like that, you may go home over holidays or several times a year, and your mother, your aunt, or somebody may say, oh, you look good since you lost weight. Oh, you look good since you had a hair transplant. Who knows what? People are going to do that. And I'm not inferring, as you people should know in any way, you don't turn around to people who do that and say, well, shut up, I don't need your approval. Nope. Got nothing to do with that. But you have got to realize that you are continually doing that. You and everybody else in the city, and it's got nothing to do with this. And so if it's got nothing to do with this, the time that you spend doing that, the energy, and it's not just wasting time, I'm just trying to lead you up to another point. And the energy you're wasting, but the point is you are continuing to support the very things that have got nothing to do with this. You are continuing to support, that is, by accepting validation from other people. You're continuing to support the very things in you that can only lead to some success, that is, nowhere. So what comes after one? Two. Since one got, I can't wait to see what two will get. Still in regards to a real revolutionist having no tolerance, no need for, will not accept the some success. More specifically, here we go. Boy, I bet this is, even I like. Number two would be that the real revolutionist would also, it's a slight variation, have no tolerance for, this is better than use, this time we'll leave it, would have no tolerance for personal comments that he or she might make about themselves. Forget use. That's not even the ball game. I'm not even going to stop to talk about the use of that. They just couldn't tolerate it. Would anybody like to speak up for city folks and ordinary intelligence and say, well, if we're going to start down that line again, then you're just about going to cut out people every time about themselves, right? Well, you sly devils, you. Well, it's getting to the point that there's hardly no putting anything over on you, right? All right. Hate to leave it at 3. But 3, just in general, a real revolutionist would have no interest in, we can expand that, have no interest, put no energy into the some success syndrome. You would just simply not be a party to it. You would not count chickens. You would not keep score. You would not make charts. That whatever you did, you would do it. And here I go out and go make it simple, verbally. You would do it. You wouldn't talk about it. You wouldn't tell anybody. You wouldn't ask anybody's opinion. You wouldn't ask anybody to help you keep score. You wouldn't say, how do I look? And you would not say anything. Of course, you can say something without saying something. You would not have to be seeking validation by going into a party around people you hadn't been around with for months and keep turning sideways hoping that they realize that you've somewhere lost 20 or 30 pounds of excess avoirdupois. Did you keep doing this until someone finally says, my. I guess you were pregnant a few months ago. You seem to, you've lost enough for a small person. You would have no part, no interest in the some success syndrome, which is synonymous also with the ever inescapable inconclusiveness of the city. I just know not enough people followed this. Let's stop the tape and I'll give it one more shot. I want you for me to try and chemically and electrically fuse two things together I want you to get a glimpse of. Turn the tape over. Well, yes, I would. Just about a half. 3/5 again is about right. 3/5. Now give me about 2 minutes at the end so I can... 3 minutes. Can you get a glimpse before I go to another paragraph? That all of the things I mentioned tonight, specifically I was numbering, and many other things I've talked about in the past. But they're keeping score, counting chickens, making charts, weighing yourself, talking about it, needing, seeking, accepting validation from other people, making comments on you, yourself, by yourself, that all of that, do you see, will assure some success. Did anybody hear that? I don't mean it will ensure some success. Hell, being in live will assure some success, but what it will do is assure that you're limited to some success, because that's all you can have. But in the city, that's enough. You don't realize it. People do not. I could point this out, and we'd have some psychologists jump up in the city and say, well, sure, I can explain that away, that I knew that. I was about to write a paper on that. I can point out that part of people saying, for instance, losing weight. Now, supposedly now there's statistics that show that something like 99 point something of the people who lose weight gain it back. no matter how many times they lose it. They gain it back. Of course, that's not a real popular area of discussion on the Donahue show out in public, you know, especially people want to lose weight, which the last figure I heard was 98.1% of the people in the country trying to lose weight. So it's not a popular area to say that they all gain it back. But I could point out, wait a minute, this is a continuing hobby. And so to say that they gain it back, that's not failure. They can say, yeah, but it's not total success. And I say, okay, so it was some success. And then they'd say, yeah, but that's not enough because we want what? We want to lose the weight and keep it off. That'll be real total success, right? And I say, okay, but listen to me. And I can say, part of success, this syndrome of some success, part of it is this. Now, this is true and not true. And I don't want to say it to you people, so you got to hear it and I can't prove it. Is that part of the reason, 3D reason, that people gain the weight back is that the whole syndrome has to do with validation, etc. If somebody lose some weight and somebody else say, "My, don't that look good?" and they go, "Hooray!" and go and have 4 quarts of ice cream. Not just at once, but the validation becomes part of the some success, and then they can, it would appear to be. Now remember, this is not true, you people coming in here for the first time. None of this is psychological. Psychological is window dressing. Psychological is clothes on you. I'm talking about the reality behind it, or trying to as much as possible. But it would seem that part of the whole some success syndrome, and I knew I'd get a laugh, it's not just that somebody says, "My, you look so good, you've lost weight." And you go, "That's great." And you feel so good to celebrate it, you go eat 4 quarts of ice cream. I knew I'd get a laugh, but I don't mean that was just that one-shot thing. It's this continuing inconclusiveness that is a piece of what happens. But in the city, that makes no sense, even though, as I said, some psychologists say, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's childish. Anybody knows that." No, they don't. Because it's not that one thing. It's just part of the some success syndrome. Can any of you sense, what I was trying to still run around the edges of the campfire here with you, that part of the things I keep bad-mouthing and knocking and trying to threaten and trick you into, such as don't count your chickens, don't keep charts, don't make diagrams, don't talk about what you're doing even to yourself, do you realize, kind of a backdoor approach, that the more you could do that with some understanding, not just blindly trying to do it, because if you just blindly try to do it, the best you're going to have is what? Some success, which is no fucking success. But if you begin to understand what it is, and you understand for your own reason, you understand not psychologically, but based upon the laws of chemistry and physics and mathematics and a few other things, you understand that if I'm actually going to do this, whatever it is, let's say lose weight, but let's now say that I'm speaking parabolically, that you understand that if I'm going to lose weight, I cannot eat Ben & Jerry's chocolate chip double crunch every day. Still speaking metaphorically, then you understand, all right, every time I tell somebody that what I'm doing, every time I make some comment, even verbally or otherwise, about what I'm doing, it would be the same as me trying to lose weight and every day eating Ben & Jerry's double crunch chocolate. Does anybody hear me? That you feel yourself, you know that I am assuring that I'm only going to have some success, which is failure to a revolutionist. Because a revolutionist doesn't undertake something that some success will do, or that the some success syndrome will do. That is, all right, I'll say I want to lose weight, but I don't really. I just want something to talk about. Jesus, go somewhere else. Go back to the city, that's it. But don't hang around me, because I ain't going to talk about it. And other than on St. Rabbit's Day, when you've had a few drinks and want to slobber and say how much you enjoy being here with me, I'm not going to talk to you when you say, I've been thinking that I ought to quit so-and-so, smoking. And I want you to know that I've had some success. Don't tell me that shit. And especially don't tell me, when I first came here, I used to have horrible nightmares. I used to hate my mother, but now I've had some progress. Just save it. Give me a break. Go somewhere else. That doesn't mean anything. Anybody, take a stranger off the street that we never met and bring him in here. And we say, we've been talking about people with bad attitudes. You like kind of man once had a bad attitude, and the guy say, I did, but it's not quite as bad. And we'd all say, so you mean you've had, yes, some success. Thank you. Give the man a drink, free ticket, and let him out. Anybody's had some success. It's impossible not to have some success. So don't attribute it to me, which is blaming it on me. Everybody's had some success. Blithely talking about it, living serenely blissful in your ignorance, your dumbness, wallowing in some success, looking forward to additional some successes, will be assured as long as you keep talking, as long as you waste energy, not the city level, but to do this, as long as you will accept, as long as you need and you refuse to see it, that you need continually validation of other people. Has anybody ever thought of one of the tricks? I might as well mention it. Well, you couldn't have thought about it in this sense up until this week. That part of the trickery, this is just a piece, and I can say it has no significance, that this is almost immune from validation, because you can't go outside this room, not if you hear anything I'm talking about, and go outside and rush to your mother or your old best friend from college days and say, listen, let me tell you what he said tonight. It's even better, and plus I'm beginning to understand it. I can even put my own little twist and spin on it sometime. You can't go out and get validation from for this. It's beautiful. Of course, if you know what you're doing, like I said, you don't need validation, because you understand that all this exists within the realm of non-validation and all validation. It's a weird place in life system. It's almost, if any of you are hearing this once I started this, I can't resist. Those of you who are not hearing this, this may scare you, and so that means you didn't hear it. But to be a kind of revolutionist, to have a new intelligence, to be able to see in a way that other people can't see, it's almost like being a fanatic with nothing to be fanatic about. Well, maybe some of you heard it. You know, back in the city, mental institutions are full of people who say, I know the truth. Of course, pulpits and places are full of guys that say that. But really, there are people who say, listen, I know the truth, and only I know the truth. Plus, I understand that the rest of you people can't see what I see. And of course, they put people like that away if they keep it up and ignore their relatives and you look at them, if you're just ordinary, and you look at them, and you say, yeah, those people are coming unglued. This, on the surface, is almost that. Not the reality of that, you understand. But me pointing out that a real revolutionist needs no validation. That is, he doesn't need anybody to tell him that, yeah, what you think is true. He knows it's true. But as I said, those who really say, look, I know what's true and I don't need anybody. In fact, if you don't agree with me, you're nuts. All you got to do is say that, and if you say it too many times, they put you away, because they're in the majority. And by you saying, listen, I know I'm right, and if you don't know I'm right, you're crazy. Then you say that to enough people out there, and they outnumber you. Contrary, they decide you're crazy, which I'm not saying is ill-founded. It's needed in life. And so this, what I was trying to hint at without scaring some of you, this is almost verbally into that kind of corner if you just listen to this while passing by on a raging horse. Did you think, wait, what you're saying is a real revolutionist, or somebody gets to the point that, now I see the truth, and only I see it. Nobody sees it but me, and I don't need anybody to even discuss it with me. Just being a fanatic and nothing to be fanatic about. Sort of. But if you need validation for something, it's not true. It may be true in the city, but if you need validation, it's not correct. If you need validation, you don't understand what it is. Surely you people can smell some of that. You simply do not. Who's going to validate it for you? You never notice it. And if you say, well, my good friend so-and-so, my brother, my father, his opinion is worth something. Or if he's worth something, go learn from him. Go learn from somebody. Again, I'm not trying to be harsh for any particular reason, but you've got to understand there is nobody to validate any information except what's already floating around the city. It doesn't need validating. It's just irrelevant to doing this. You're irrelevant to doing this. That is, if you've got to be validated. I guess I made enough asides tonight, but I'll make one more. Another part of this, I can say a part of this, but at least we can I'll be more direct verbally, at least the way I've been doing it, to give you some breathing room, is there is no particular validation even going on here. You know, I don't tell you people, good boy, good boy. Boy, you're coming right along. Couldn't be prouder of you. Which, of course, is one of the drawbacks that keeps this from ever becoming a good cult, me being able to strip you people of all your money and buy myself a Rolls Royce finally. Because to be a cult, you got to have some kind of validation, even if it seems to be negative. And this, even though I was saying the way I do it, I was hinting to you that it's not just my personal peccadillo or the way I'm doing it. But this doesn't validate people. It doesn't say, well, you're fine, or you're doing a lot better. If you need somebody to tell you you're doing a lot better, you ain't. Not here, not in this. You're just simply not. And I must say, the sooner you realize that, the better off we'll all be. Not the better off you'll be. Well, I had a couple of quickies. No, that's too good. I was going to tell you something about revenge and how it's tied to this. But a quickie. Well, you remember me speaking about bodies and the elastic limit of bodies and how it gives the appearance, the sensation that change is possible, that things can happen. Just a little quickie, since I keep referring back to this as an example. Can everybody see that the sensation, the popularity of the worldwide historical enjoyment of being via alcohol, being tipsy, the extended popularity of a little sip now and then, can anybody see it creates a sensation that pushes the elasticity of one's body, the entire body? I don't mean, of course, just physically, but it's kind of a good sensation because you know that you're going to recover. It's like a real easy form. All you got to do is be able to afford a couple of drinks, and you've got what amounts to is that change. That, yeah, I can change just from 5 or 10 minutes. I can be somebody else, and I know I'll get back all right. That is, I'll recover. Even if I get even worse, even if I stretch myself further tonight and have 10 more drinks. And assuming somebody drives me home, tomorrow sometime I'll get over the hangover and I'll go back to where I was. But between now and then, it's a kind of real cheap push on the elasticity of one's being. There's a lot more. I just bring up the example of drinking, but there's a lot in life having to do with that. There are the examples, apparent spiritual experiences people have, religious experiences is what I meant specifically. Some emotional experiences. I know many of you think that I've tried to stick my finger in your eye, which I did, just you people not laugh, about wallowing in reading the newspapers and stories about fire burns down tenement in Brooklyn and 10 helpless babies die. Oh, and people cry. Part of that in the city, you got no business doing it. But in the city, is to be emotional, even that it's a new force, something outside you that will distort the elasticity of your feelings there for a few seconds or a few minutes. You may talk about the rest of the day. You want to gossip with your neighbors or people at work. Did you hear 10 children? And somebody pops up, yeah, I heard they were all under the age of 7. Oh. It's not dissimilar from being a little tipsy. It is a stretching of the body. And you recover. They're all, of course we're talking about, now I'm talking about from a revolutionist view, not from a city view, not from life's overall view, but it's all a cheap ticket at change. You don't really change. You don't make any effort. Well, you make the effort to pick up the Inquirer and look at it, And then you make the effort later, you read it and you put it back. Then later, an hour later, you pull into work and you're standing around the coffee machine. Then you make the effort to remember if you want to do something. You say, oh, did you read that 10 little children got burned to death? And so you bring it back, little freeze-dried packets of energy known as memory. You bring it back, and you apparently have put this force on you, and you get distorted a little bit. And people, of course, they could, if they were listening to me, say, well, there is some sort of psychological cleansing of people doing such as that. That's not even the point. It's not even the point that you don't need that if you're a city, that it doesn't serve any purpose. It's what I've tried to point out to you, that it is wasted energy, and it is a true faux emotion. It is true ersatz change. It is truly sham, but not in the sense of being denounced by me as being unworthy of city emotions, because city emotions, anything's worthy. But it's you people, because it is a form of fake change. It is no better, it is no greater effort, it is no more propitious than it is for you to take a drink just because you feel bad. Now, I hate to see good alcohol, if something that was good alcohol, wasted on people who say, well, I just took a drink because I felt bad. Especially if it's something good like Jack Daniels. You know, I'd like to go and slap them in the face and say, well, drink something cheap. Don't waste good booze for that, because that, you're wasting it. Same thing. If you can hear me, if somebody say, can I tell you, I know I hadn't seen you in months. Did you know that my husband was killed in a car wreck, or my wife? And you say, no. They say, sit down, let me tell you all about it. That's the same thing as saying, Jesus, I feel kind of ill, I'm out of sorts, I think I'll have a drink. I'd assume by now that most of you would think, or agree if I asked, that you'd say, yeah, that ain't the way you live, or that's not going to get you anywhere. You can't, just because you feel bad, you can't keep popping a pill or take a drink. But people do it in other ways. It's the same thing. As far as the revolutionists, it's the same thing as those who would go to a religious organization, go to a church, a synagogue, and I don't feel good. I'm going to go to the big monopoly. I'm going to go take the big drink. And all you're looking for, in the city, it's all right. For a few people, what you're looking for is an extraneous, which they all are, passing, which they all are, useless, which they all are for this, new force placed upon the body of you to give you a temporary distortion, but one from which you will snap back. You say, well, I went and prayed. I went to confession. I had a drink. Yes, well, I feel somewhat better. I know you do. But what you're saying is, well, I'm kind of over it. I snap back. It's no different than drinking. No different than drugs. And none of that's bad. It's not good. It's just useless. It's temporary. All it offers is some success. And a real revolutionist has got no use for some success. That's no success. It's nothing. Oh, all right. It's life, if you insist. And if you're satisfied with living, Jesus, give me a break. Into public tape. All you people on horseback, be careful riding home. Don't ride hard and put yourselves up wet. Won't take but a second. Oh, you back? We still got room on the bulletin board. All right. Neural excursion expanded. Fill-in quiz revisited. Some of you enjoyed the fill-in quiz from a few nights ago. So now I'm going to expand it. Make it a little more specific. Here's the fill-in quiz now. Now listen, because it's not the same thing. does what he thinks, feels, does, or says. People have been playing with this all the way from philosophy to commercial advertising. And of course religion. But somewhere in there is a potential for something, or I wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't be the Chuck Barris of the bushes. Of course, if you'd give me a break, then you people wouldn't be run-of-the-mill gong show contestants either, but as long as this particular song keeps playing, I guess we'll dance a few steps more, but remember, all ballrooms have to shut down sooner or later. Did he mean that parabolically? I don't know. I didn't even know what parabolically meant.